Yeah, today it's going live.
ओके हिमांशु जी, अभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को ज्वाइन करते करते 2-5 मिनट लगेंगे.
Sure.
इफ यू वांट वी कैन वेट, इफ यू वांट तो हम स्टार्ट भी कर सकते हैं.
So we can wait for 2-3 minutes because
ठीक है, ठीक
maybe
है.
that more participants can join.
यस यस यस. अदरवाइज बिल्कुल स्टार्टिंग वाला मिस हो जाएगा कुछ पार्टिसिपेंट्स का. यस. ओके.
Correct. Correct.
आप जब कल 148A की बात कर रहे थे और शो कॉज नोटिस की बात कर रहे थे 148 वाला, तो मुझे अपना एक केस जरूर याद आ रहा था. उसके अंदर पूरा केस हम लोगों ने क्वैश ही सिर्फ इस बेसिस पे कराया अपील के टाइम पे कि शो कॉज नोटिस 7 डेज से कम का था. द
Correct.
इंटायर केस, द मेरिट्स गए डस्टबिन में. द इंटायर केस वाज क्वैश्ड ओनली ऑन दिस particular ground, factual
Legal point.
ground. Yes, and
Right.
yes, procedural ground, in fact. So I
Right.
realized the importance of procedural grounds that day. कि क्यों संजय सर कहते हैं कि प्रोसीजरल ग्राउंड्स को बहुत ध्यान से देखना है नया,
Correct.
बिकॉज इट
Correct.
कैन मेक और ब्रेक इट फॉर यू.
No, definitely. If there is a technical ground in the proceeding, then
यस
the factual become academic, and inter proceeding may be quashed.
यस यस
So,
एग्जैक्टली.
so this is
टुडे.
the reason we need to understand the law.
Yes, yes. In fact, Rishabh has also joined us. Rishabh, are you here?
Hi, hi, Rishabh.
I think there was some technical issue. He dropped out.
So I believe so that the participants have been increased. So this is
Yes, yes, yes. I
so
think we can start. We can start. Do you have any background noise from my side? Because my partner is still talking on the phone.
okay. नहीं, this is clear.
नहीं है ना, कोई बैकग्राउंड नॉइज नहीं है ना? ठीक है. सर, आर वी लाइव?
Yeah, we are live.
हाँ, वी आर लाइव. ओके. ओके, डन. यस. To the second day of the much awaited 2-day webinar series on in-depth analysis of income tax reassessment proceedings. Today, we are covering the analysis of notices under Section 148A, 148 on or after 1/4/2021 till 30th August 2024. कल हम 2025 वाला ऑलरेडी कवर कर चुके हैं. आई होप आज का हम सेशन बहुत बढ़िया कर पाएंगे इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ दिस टॉपिक. वॉइस ऑफ सीए ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स बाय चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स फॉर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स, ये कहते हैं हम वॉइस ऑफ सीए के बारे में जब हम एक लाइन में कहीं वॉइस ऑफ सीए को डिफाइन करते हैं. वॉइस ऑफ सीए is an NGO which has been working for the CA profession since 2009 and was founded by our founder CA Sanjay Kumar Agarwal, who's a central council member and my beloved father, along with his friends and colleagues, with the intention of having a platform for members to update and network. ये उस जमाने में खोला था जब नेटवर्किंग और इंटरनेट किसी को पता नहीं था. And since then, we have been in the service of our profession. You can always connect with us through our social media platforms, wherever you are active: Facebook, Telegram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp channel. In fact, you can find webinars of every professional topic you want on our YouTube channel. Stay updated with our future programs and initiatives by staying in touch with us on any of the social media platforms. I welcome Janvi ji from OneNDF, who are our partners. Rishabh, are you here? Hi, Rishabh. Would you like to welcome our speaker for today, if you are online? I don't think Bimanshu is online. I'll welcome you all by myself.
Sure.
So, yes, I would quickly like to
Thank you.
introduce. I would quickly like to introduce our speaker Bimanshu जी. हमारे बहुत सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स ने कल उनको ऑलरेडी सुना है इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट, पर फिर भी आज जो हमारे साथ नए नए पार्टिसिपेंट्स जुड़े हैं, मैं उनके लिए उनको इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहूंगी. ही इज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एंड एन एडवोकेट हैविंग almost 10 years of experience representing related to income tax and international tax before High Court, ITAT, CIT appeals, DRP. Currently, he is the founder of Consult Vimanshu Legal, is practicing as an advocate and representing the matter before tax tribunal and high courts. He has made the Delphi committee of ICI, various study circles and branches of ICI. Voice of CA is very happy to have you over here, Vimanshu. He has also authored a book in minimum alternate tax with the publisher Taxman. He has also written various articles on income tax matters. In past, he was awarded with FIT Fellow 2023 award by the Foundation for International Taxation for his research paper on the international taxation topic OECD Pillar 2.0 project by Justice A.K. Sikri and Mr. Pramod Kumar. We are happy to have you again on our platform today, Bimanshu, and we hope that we'll keep doing such webinars with you. Over to you. Hi, Shipra ma'am. A very warm welcome.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right.
Good evening to everybody.
Yes, Shipra ma'am. We'll start with the technical program right now, and maybe we can hear you out a little later.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bimanshu ji, over to you.
Thank you, Neha ji, for this warm introduction. Goddess Saraswati, Sanjay Agrawal sir, founder Voice of CA, Neha Agrawal ji, Rishabh ji, and the team Voice of CA, professional colleagues who joined today's webinar. Good evening. Today we will discuss the notices which have been issued from 1st April 21 to 30th August 2024. So why we are so the initial date, which is starting from 1st April 2021, why so? Because reassessment law has been changed from this date. So this is the reason we have kept 1st April 2021. And it looks like 30th August 2024. It looks like very odd date, but why so? I just want to mention that White Finance number 2 Act 2024, the law has been amended again. And in fact, if we see the reassessment law from Finance Act 21, Finance Act 2022, Finance Act 2023, and Finance Act 2024, in each 4 year, there is a tinkering in reassessment law. So somewhere tax professional should be aware that what type of changes have been made in the assessment procedure so that for each assessment year, the proceeding can be handled by professionals in a very well manner. So I just share my screen. So I was mentioning that why this is 30 August 2024. So Finance Act 2024 से law change हुआ and that came with effect from 1st September 2024. So considering that whatever law as per Finance number 2 Act 2024 that is applicable from 1st September 2024. So what officer has done as per the previous law, they have issued whatever were the pending notices from their side by 30 August 2024. So this is the reason this looks very odd date, but this is the relevance of 30 August 2024. So now I share my screen and first it starts from the notices which have been issued from 1st April 2021 and that have been issued by 30 June 2021.
Bimanshu, I would like to interrupt you here. अनीत सर का मैसेज आया है चैट बॉक्स में, वो कह रहे हैं प्लीज कल के पॉइंट्स थोड़ा सा रिवाइज कर दो. इफ यू कैन टेक 2 minutes, क्विकली टू रिवाइज समथिंग, अनित सर अगर आपका कोई स्पेसिफिक क्वेरी रहेगा वो आप Q&A बॉक्स में डाल दो कल का वेबिनार का, पर विभांशु जी इफ यू कैन जस्ट टेक 2 minutes एंड रिवाइज.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, in fact, thanks for highlighting this also because that may be relevant to recap yesterday webinar also. So, we have seen the notices which have been issued in March 2025 under Section 148 and 148A, and these have been issued in pursuant to amendment brought by Finance Act 2024. So, many notices which we have seen which are issued under 148A, many notices which we have seen directly issued under 148. So this is as per law itself. And I mentioned, highlighted yesterday that this is the show is not over. We can see more notices by end of June 2025 because where officer is not required to follow law under 148A, then in that scenario, 148 notice can be issued directly. And since the timelines to issue 148 is totally independent, because if we see prior law, then somewhere either officer need to issue 148 or 148A by end of March. But now, White Finance Act 2024, the time limit to issue 148 and 148 is totally independent. There is no dependency to issue 148 on 148A. So this is the reason where 148 notice can be issued directly and time limit is 5 years, 3 months, 3 years, 3 months. So for assessment year 1920 and 2122, officers are still having time to issue notice. So we can see further notices under 148 by end of June 2025. This is technical position which is as per law itself. Now, when we are talking about the procedure, amended procedure, so somewhere I have covered that in my today's slides also. So you will be having an idea that what is the law as per current procedure and what was the law as per the prior procedure. So we will take that up. In fact, if you will be having any question, then definitely we can discuss at later stage. And since this webinar will be available over YouTube also, so you can hear yesterday webinar over YouTube also. Right, Nehaji? So hopefully my screen is visible to everyone. Okay. So first we are discussing the notices which are issued from 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021. Because what happened that law have been amended by Finance Act 21 and that was effective also from 1st April 2021. But you may remember that during that period, there were certain extensions in timeline to issue any notices and order. So notices which have been issued from 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021 have been issued by officer following the earlier law under an impression that since time limit to issue notices have been extended, so considering that these notices can be issued by following the earlier law. But we can understand when the law has been passed by Parliament and that is effective from 1st April 2021. So although the extension can be done in reference to issuance of notice and orders, but the law cannot be extended. This is not the power of government to extend any law which is already been passed by the Parliament. This is the reason notices which have been issued between these 3 months got controversy and various writ petitions have been filed before different high courts. And high courts have accepted contention of assessee also and quashed the notices which have been issued under section 148 in these 3 months because officer have issued 148 notices following the prior law, although new law was effective from 1st April 2020. So in this regard, this is a very landmark judgment, and I believe so that everyone have heard about two judgment, which is Ashish Agrawal and Rajiv Bansal. Yesterday, Ashwani ji was saying that if there is a chartered accountant, so definitely he practice into income tax law, and everyone is having notices in relation to reassessment proceedings. So once we talk about reassessment proceedings, so definitely we are aware that there are two landmark judgment, Ashish Agrawal and Rajiv Bansal, which need to be taken into consideration while handling reassessment proceedings. So what Ashish Agrawal held that initially the notices which have been challenged before High Court, all notices have been quashed. So controversy reached before Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has accepted this position that High Court has rightly quashed the notices which have been issued under Section 148 because law has been amended. So it has been mentioned that provision of Section 147 to 151 is then substituted and amended by Finance Act 2021, and that was effective from 1st April 2021. So accordingly, the notices which have been issued following the prior law in these 3 months will not be valid notices. So accordingly, all notices were quashed. But they also accepted that since the amended law is much beneficial and to this is mean to protect the right and interest of assessee. So and also there is no saving clause in the amended provision. So accordingly, the department cannot issue reassessment notices after amended law in the prior law. So considering that the action taken by the department is void of initio. But Supreme Court has also observed that in a bona fide belief, the department has issued the notices under 148 by following the prior law. So accordingly, they are also not incorrect. So somewhere to balance the interest of revenue and the assessee, what Supreme Court has held that they have directed that reassessment notices which have been issued under Section 148 as per prior law should be considered as the notices have been issued by following the procedure under 148A. So these notices under 148 are considered as notices issued under section 148A clause B, because as per the amended procedure, as I mentioned earlier, that officer need to follow procedure delineated under section 148A. So what Supreme Court has held that 148 notices should be considered as notices have been issued under section 148A under deeming fiction. So this is the reason they have not quashed the proceeding, but they have set aside all the proceedings, and in pursuant to that, and this is the Supreme Court order was dated on 4th May 2022. So what happened that CBDT came with instruction number 1 2022 on 11th May 2022, and they have directed the assessing officer to follow the instructions to in pursuant to Ashish Agrawal case. So now what happened that there is a Ashish Agrawal case, there is a direction from CBDT. In pursuant to that, now officer need to supply material to assessee so that assessee may consider the information available with the department and may submit the response. Because as per the amended provision and as per the procedure under 148A, somewhere officer will give an opportunity to assessee to respond also before issuance of 148. So by following Ashish Agrawal case and by following the new procedure, officer has supplied material to assessee to respond the notices, and they have given time to respond the notices. So now this is all about Ashish Agrawal and effect of Ashish Agrawal. But now second controversy have been started. What assessee has contended, okay, you have considered the notices issued from 1st April 21 to 30 June 21 as notices have been issued 148A. But some of the proceedings are time barred, because if we recall the earlier law, the time limit to issue notice under 148 was 4 years, and that may be extended to 6 years if the income escapement is exceeding 1 lakh rupees. But now in amended provision, there is a time limit to issue notice under section 148 is 3 years in general sense. And if assessing officer is having or there is any evidence, documentation which is in the possession of assessing officer, and as per those information, the income statement is likely 50 lakh or more than 50 lakh rupee, then the time limit is 10 years in that scenario. So, sorry, 6 years in that scenario. So, considering that the next contention from the assessee side was that first is that proceedings are time barred because you have already accepted that law has been amended and from 1st April 2021, the new law need to be taken into consideration. So considering that new timelines need to be considered while issuing the notice, this is the first issue. Second issue was that the earlier law required the approval from a specified authority from different officer. As per the amended procedure, the new specified authority has been prescribed under law, from which assessing officer need to take approval while issuing the notice under section 148. So considering that since the matter are time barred and also approval from specified authority has not been taken, so controversy again reached to Supreme Court, and this is in relation to again Supreme Court judgment in case of Rajiv Bansal. So now if we see that from 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021, notices in relation to assessment year 2013-14, 14-15, 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18 have been issued. So considering that Supreme Court categorically has mentioned that for which assessment year, what position need to be taken care. So first we are talking about the proceeding in relation to assessment year 2013-14 and 14-15. So somewhere this we need to understand in pursuant to Supreme Court judgment in case of Ashish Agrawal and also CBDT Instruction 1 2022. So as I mentioned that officer need to supply material to assessee as per the CBDT direction and assessee need to submit the response. So there is a surviving period which has been defined by Supreme Court in the judgment of Rajiv Bansal. And what is the surviving period? So when the officer had initially issued notice under 148 in between 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021. So there are three time periods now. First is 1st April 21 to 30 June 21. Second is 1st July to 4th May. 1st July is the date after 30 June and 4th May is the date on which Supreme Court has pronounced in case of Ashish Agrawal. And third one is post 4th May 2022. So what is the surviving period? Let's suppose officer has issued notice under old law on 1st May 2021 and the limitation period from 1st April 21 to 30 June 21 has been excluded. Considering that when officer has issued the notice from that date to 30 June 21, that need to be considered as my surviving period. So I have taken one example here, which is from the Supreme Court judgment itself. As per para 112 of Supreme Court judgment, this example has been given while calculating the surviving period and the validation of issuance of notice under section 148. So let's suppose that officer has issued notice on 1st May 2021 and period from issuance of notice to 30 June 21 need to be excluded. So considering that this is the 61 days period, 1st May 21 to 30 June 2021. And this period need to be included while considering the limitation period to issue 148 notice in pursuant to Ashish Agrawal judgment. So let's suppose that officer has supplied information on 2nd June 22 and assessee has responded to that notice because this will be considered as notice issued under 148A in pursuant to which assessee need to respond. So 2nd June 22 was the date on which information has been supplied by assessing officer to assessee and assessee has responded on 18 June. So 61 need to be added from 18 June 22, and that is the limitation period to issue fresh 148 notice as per the uh, Ashish Agrawal judgment. So now if we consider this scenario, limitation period in my case becomes 18 August. How it is computed? 18 June 22 plus 61 days. The date on which assessee has responded plus 61 days. So if notice has been issued under 148 after 18 August 22, that is time barred because that has been issued after limitation period. So this is very important point which we need to understand while handling the reassessment proceeding, which have been initiated from 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021 as per the old law. Now, two more points which we need to understand here. Let's suppose that for that particular year, the assessing officer has issued notice post 30 June 2021. So since that is time barred, that has been issued after limitation period, so that is apparently liable to be quest. This is first point. Second point which we also need to understand earlier. So in my yesterday webinar, I have mentioned that under 148 section, now officer need to issue notice. Earlier, the 148 notice need to be served, but now the word has been changed and that has been changed from issue to serve to issue. So considering that as per earlier law, when notice need to be served, so we need to see that it may be possible that officer has issued notice on 29 June and 30 June, but when this is served to assessee, if this is served on 1st July onwards, then we can say that since the service of notice under section 148 is after limitation period, so that is liable to be quest. So in relation to assessment year 2013-14 and 14-15, we need to understand this legal aspects in relation to limitation period. Now, if we are talking about assessment year 15-16, since that period does not fall under TOLA, then this is apparently time bar. For assessment year 16-17 and 17-18, it looks like that, okay, so first point which I need to explain here is that Supreme Court has considered that the limitation period to take approval has also been extended to 30 June 2021. But now I have explained that fresh notice under 148 also need to be issued in pursuant to Ashish Agrawal judgment. So when approval has been taken in July, August and September, जैसे भी इसका जिसका भी limitation period है, so considering that now new law will be come into picture, so accordingly approval need to be taken from specified authority which is prescribed in the new law. So for assessment year 16-17 and 17-18, if approval has been taken from PCIT instead of PCCIT, then this may be invalid and then proceeding may be quest. So this is a brief in relation to notices have been issued in between 3 months, 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021, and what are the implications of Ashish Agrawal and Rajiv Bansal judgment. One point that I just want to highlight while calculating the surviving period, and we have seen this practically also, that in many cases, the assessing officer has issued notice on 29 June and 30 June. And let's suppose that has been served on same day also. So in that scenario, we need to check that as soon as the assessee has responded to notice to the information supplied to him, then assessing officer need to immediately issue 148 notice or in a day time itself. So if this is the case of 29 June, then only officer will be having 2 days time to issue notice. And if this is 30 June, then immediately he has to issue 148 notice immediately after getting the response from assessor. So somewhere we need to keep in mind that how the notices have been issued to your client, when the information have been supplied, that has been supplied or not, when assessee has responded, and what is the accordingly limitation period considering surviving period to issue 148 notice as per new law. And what type of approval from which authority the assessing officer has taken. So these are the key points which professionals need to understand while handling proceedings in relation to notices issued from 1st April 21 to 30 June 2021. Now we will discuss, as I mentioned, that the law has been amended by Finance Act 2021, and now it has been mentioned in the law that before issue or before service of any notice under 148, officer need to follow 148A procedure. Although there are certain exceptions which we will discuss in our subsequent slide, wherein officer could issue notice under 148 directly without following the procedure under 148A. But for the time being, we are understanding that what is the procedure that need to be followed by assessing officer while issuing the notice under 148A. So clause A of 148A, this talks about, and one more point which professionals should understand here, that earlier, as per the law which exists prior to Finance Act 2021, if assessing officer is having reason to believe, then prima facie this validates the reassessment proceeding. And Supreme Court in some of the judgment has mentioned and clarified that reason to believe, if assessing officer is having reason to believe, that is more broader in comparison to if assessing officer is satisfied. And now if we check the language of law as per the amended procedure, so language is that if assessing officer is having certain suggestive information. So I believe so that if assessing officer is satisfied is more broader than assessing officer is having information which is in a suggestive manner. So considering that, we can see that whatever the law has been amended by Finance Act 2021 in terms of information which is in a suggestive manner, this is more beneficial from assessee point of view, because officer is having certain information, he is suggesting that you may be having income escapement. Now, if you are following and responding the notices properly during the course of procedure under 148A, that would be helpful for you for future proceeding. Either it may be case that officer will think that this is not the fit case to issue 148, or it may be scenario that officer consider it that this is the case to issue notice 148. But yes, since all the documentation and information would be in the reports of income tax department, so while handling the proceeding under 148, after issuance of 148 notice, then you will be in a better position to substantiate your claim. So if we are talking about the procedure which is as per section 148A, so clause A says that officer need to inquire the information available with the assessing officer, which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. But if we read the language of law, so inquire, it has been mentioned inquiry if required. So this is not mandatory to make an inquiry before issuance of notice under 148 AB. This is only up to discretion of assessing officer whether he want to inquire the matter or not. So for more clarity, I am going at bare of 148A. So yes, so this is the procedure and this is the law under 148A. The assessing officer shall, before issuing any notice under 148, conduct any inquiry if required. And if he is doing an inquiry, then he has to take prior approval from a specified authority. So court has interpreted in some of the rates, High Court has interpreted that although this starts from shall, but this is also supported with if required. So it is not necessary that officer will do inquiry. But I take an example here that where officer should inquire the matter and it becomes mandatory also. Let's suppose that officer has alleged that you have taken unsecured loan of, let's suppose, 48 lakh rupee, and he has issued the notice. Now, at later stage, during the course of proceeding, it has been identified that loan amount is not 48 lakh rupee, but this is more than 50 lakh rupee. So considering that, since assessing officer is having information, there is no doubt in that. But information are not so accurate because in this scenario, somewhere officer need to make an inquiry. So considering that, we can say that in such a scenario, it becomes mandatory also from a assessing officer perspective that an inquiry need to be done before issuing any notice under 148A(b). But yes, we need to keep in mind the language if required also, and court may interpret that this is not mandatory in any case. Now we are moving to clause B, and I am going back to the presentation because this will help professional to understand the comparative procedure also. As initially it has been asked that जो कल वाला वेबिनार था उसको भी रिवाइज करने का so we can understand comparative law also. So if we are talking about inquiry, so in the new law which is White Finance Act 2024, there is no mention in the law about inquire the matter. If assessing officer is having information and that suggests that assessee has escaped income, then he can directly issue the notice. Now, second point is time limit to respond to show cause notice. In earlier law, there were time limit which have been given that officer will give so and so time to assessee to respond to notice under section 148A(b). So what the law was that assessing officer is required to provide an opportunity of being heard by service notice under 148(1). This is in the amended law. But yes, we are talking about in today's webinar the earlier law, which says that assessing officer is required to provide an opportunity of being heard by service of notice under section 148(b) before issuance of notice under 148. And this is very important to understand here that time limit to respond notice should not be less than 7 days time, and that can be maximum 30 days time when assessing officer is issuing the show cause notice under 148(b). So I am again going back to Bayer law and will let you know the implications in this regard. So this is clause B, which says that I am reading from top. The assessing officer shall, before issuing any notice under 148, provide an opportunity of being heard to the assessee by serving upon him a notice to show cause within such time as may be specified in the notice, and that time period should not be less than 7 days but not exceeding 30 days time from the date on which such notice has been issued, or such time as may be extended by him on the basis of an application in this behalf from assessee. So first thing which we need to understand here is that whatever time has been given by the assessing officer to assessee, definitely assessee can seek extension because it also says that as may be extended by him on the basis of an application in this behalf. So if assessee has seek an adjournment, then assessing officer may extend that time. And whatever is the time period which is taken while responding to notice under 148A, that shall be added while recording the limitation period to issue notice under 148. So accordingly that जितना भी time period assessee को लेना है that he may seek. But when we are counting the limitation period to issue 148, तो जितना भी टाइम पीरियड इधर 148A के प्रोसीजर में लगा, चाहे से ऑफिसर ने सो मोटो अपना टाइम दिया या फिर असेसी ने एक्सटेंशन दिया, that time period will be added while calculating the limitation period under section 148. So this is in pursuant to fifth proviso to section 149, which we will understand at a later stage with the help of certain examples. But now I just want to highlight 2-3 legal issues here. कि 7 days वाला जो लिमिट यहाँ पे दिया है उसके implications क्या हैं? So let's suppose that officer has issued notice on 20 March 2023, for example, and in the notice it has been mentioned that assessee need to respond by 27 March 2023. So it looks like that officer has given 7 days time opportunity to assessee to respond to notice under 148 AB. But in digital era, we may see that actually when notice has been issued by the assessing officer. So for that purpose, we may go back to digital signature, which has been mentioned on the notices and that you may find at bottom right corner of the notice. We can also see that what is the date of signing of that notice, what is the time of signing of that notice. So let's suppose we identify and we find that that notice has been signed by assessing officer on 21st March. But on the top of notice, we find that notice date is mentioned at 20 March 2023. So actually, we may observe that although time mentioned at the top of the notice is 20 March, but until unless the assessing officer has signed that notice, how it can be issued. So in that scenario, we may consider that at least notice has been issued by assessing officer on 21st March 2023. And since the time to respond that notice is given to assessee as 27th March, so we may understand that in that scenario, 7 clear days time has not been given to assessee to respond that notice. So somewhere we may say and we may take a ground before appellate authority that procedure under 148A has not been followed properly. So this invalidates the proceedings. Now another example which I just want to take here, that let's suppose assessing officer has issued notice on 20 March, which is the date mentioned on the top of the notices. If we see DSP, that is also signed on 20 March 23. But let's suppose that that notice has been received to assessee on 21st March 2023. So then we may say that since that notice has been received to me on 21st, then somewhere 7 days need to be counted from 22nd March 2023. And in that scenario, since 6 days time has been given to assessee, not 7 days time, so we may also contend before the appellate authority that procedure has not been followed properly as per the law. So this invalidates my proceeding. Another example which may also take into consideration that when we see 148A-D order, because while concluding the proceeding under 148A, officer need to pass an order under section 148A-D, in which while passing that order, assessing officer need to take approval from a specified authority also. So we may see that let's suppose in the given scenario, 20 March 23 is the date on which notice has been issued, that is signed on that day itself, that has been received to assessee on 20 March 23 itself. And time limit is again 27 March 23. But let's suppose officer has taken approval on 25th March 23 and till that time assessee has not responded that notice. He is going to respond that notice on 27 March and he has responded also. So from that order, we may understand that officer has not actually given 7 days time to assessee because prior to that, if he has already taken approval from a specified authority, so how we can say that an opportunity of 7 days time has been given to assessee? We can say that this has been the proceeding under 148A has been already been concluded with predetermined mindset that this is a fit case to issue 148 notice. So these are the legal issues, procedural issues that we need to take care and we need to note down while handling the reassessment proceeding. Now coming to clause C now. This says that assessing officer shall, before issuing any notice under section 148, consider the reply of assessee furnished, if any, in response to show cause notice referred to in 148AB. So first thing which we need to understand here that it is not mandatory for assessee to respond to 148A notice. But I always suggest to professional to respond 148A notice because that strengthen your position and that strengthen your case before assessment of before the assessing officer during the course of proceeding under 148 or before the appellate authority. But there is no mandate that assessee need to respond notice. If he has not responded notice, then definitely notice under 148 shall be issued by the assessing officer. But main point which I just want to highlight here that assessing officer shall consider the reply of assessee. Generally, what we have seen in 148 AD order, officer use the standard language that reply of the assessee has been considered, but that is not found tenable. This is the standard line which generally assessing officer use while passing order under 148 AD. But we need to see that what type of allegation has been made by assessing officer, what response we have submitted before assessing officer, and is it the apparent ignorance to consider the reply of assessee. So to explain this point, I just take an example. Let's suppose there is a case of immovable property. So what happens that in case of immovable property, assessing officer is having source of that information from registrar also because registrar file SFT and that reflects in 26 years of assessee and assessing officer is also having that information in their report. Second point is if value of property is more than 50 lakh rupee, then in that scenario, since TDF at the rate of 1% is also need to be deducted. So somewhere that is the second source for information with the assessing officer that assessee has purchased that immovable property. So let's suppose that assessee has purchased an immovable property amounting to rupees 60 lakh. And since there are two sources available with the assessing officer to have that information, so assessing officer in the notice under 148A has alleged that you have income escapement of 1.2 CR. Now, what assessee has responded, he has submitted all documentation to prove that what is the source to buy that property. And the response has been submitted in a timely manner, in a proper drafted and representing manner. But what happened that assessing officer again has used that standard line that reply of assessee has been considered, but that is not found tenable. And assessee has also mentioned, I missed to mention here that assessee has also mentioned in his reply that there is no income escapement in support of my documentation, but without prejudice to that, income escapement should be limited to 60 lakh rupee because the source of 1.2 CR which you are alleging is having same source because property value is 60 lakh rupee. You do have two sources. This is the reason you are alleging that assessee is having an income escapement of 1.2 CR. Officer has passed order under 148 AD and he has mentioned that this is a fit case to issue 148. Reply of assessee has been considered, but that is not found tenable. And he has issued notice under 148 alleging the income escapement of 1.2 CR. We may understand in this scenario that this is the apparent case that assessing officer has not considered the reply of assessee. Because if source is same and property value is 60 lakh rupee, then how you may allege 1.2 CR? If you want to issue notice, then you may issue notice with the amount of 60 lakh rupee only. But anyhow, 1.2 CR can never be the income escapement in my this case. So in this scenario, we may take a contention that the assessing officer had to consider my reply because this starts from assessing officer shall. And he has not considered my reply in this scenario. So accordingly, procedure under 148A has not been followed. And in this scenario, various writs have been filed. And in that scenario, High Court has taken a view that since if assessing officer is not considering the reply, then proceeding need to be set aside to assessing officer to consider it afresh. So this is point as per clause C. As per point D, as I have highlighted, that officer need to pass an order under 148 AD to close the proceeding under 148A That I'll come later, but yes, I'm coming back to presentation which I have mentioned in a comparative manner in the interest of professional. So this I have explained that 7 days time at least need to be given to assessee to respond. This somewhere I have also covered that can assessee may ask for adjournment. Definitely he may ask an adjournment as per prior law. Notice should be accompanied with the information available with the assessing officer. This is an important point to understand here, that we may see that notices which have been issued under 148A in March 2025, that since law have been amended and this says that whatever information is available with the assessing officer, that need to be furnished while giving the notice to assessee under 148(1). But that was not mentioned in prior law. So accordingly, we may see that while issuing the notice under 148A, there is no information has been given by assessing officer to assessee. But when notice under 148 has been issued by assessing officer, so whatever information which is in a suggestive manner, that has been supplied by assessing officer to assessee. Now, next point is response to notice under 148A. In this relation, same position in both the law. It is not mandatory for assessee to submit response, but assessee need to submit that response to make the proceeding in a better manner. Order to determine whether this is a fit case to issue 148 notice or not. So earlier we have seen that order need to be passed under 148 AD, but now in March 2025, that order need to be issued under 148 A3. There is a change in sections also. So somewhere we need to understand that what is the earlier law, in what section the notices have been issued, under what section the order has been issued, what is the current law under which notices have been issued, whether in correct section the notices have been issued or not, that we also need to understand and note down while handling the reassessment proceeding. Time limit to pass order under 148A. In current law, there is no time limit to pass 148A order, although since the limitation period to issue 148 notice is 30 June, so anyhow by default that becomes 30 June. But in earlier law, there was a time limit to issue or pass an order under 148A. So what was the timeline? Let's suppose assessing officer has given you a timeline to respond the notice. So when the timeline is expired, so from 1 month from end of the month in which such timeline to respond notice is expired, then our assessing officer has to issue notice under 148 AD. This also we need to understand here. And let's suppose that assessing officer has given certain time, but assessee has responded to that notice also. So then we need to consider the time limit 1 month from end of the month in which assessee has responded to notice. In yesterday webinar, in the interest of professional, I just want to repeat a query from a professional. He has he has raised a question that in his case, notice under 148AB has been issued in July 2024, and till date, no order 148AD has been passed. So considering that, I mentioned him that this is time barred matter because somewhere there was a time limit which has been prescribed in earlier law. So he had to issue 148AD order within that timeline. Since he has mentioned that no order has been passed till now, so this looks like that proceeding are time barred, and that contention may be taken either before appellate authority or by way of writ before High Court. So this is the reason we need to understand this timeline as per the prior law. This is an again important thing. What are the specified authorities from whom the assessing officer need to take approval before issuing the order under 148A? So earlier there were two authorities which have been prescribed. This is under what timeline the notices have been issued. But now there is only single authority. There is no complication of 3 years or 5 years. But yes, in earlier law, we talk about if notice has been issued within 3 years, then the specified authority from whom approval need to be taken was principal commissioner, principal director, commissioner, or director. But now, if more than 3 years has been elapsed, and definitely that is 5 years, then in that scenario, principal chief commissioner, principal director general, chief commissioner, director general are the specified and correct authority from whom assessing officer need to take approval while issuing the or passing the order under 148 AD. So we need to keep in mind that whether approval has been taken by assessing officer or not, what is the correct authority from whom the assessing officer need to take that approval, because we have seen the importance of approval in Rajiv Bansal case also. If approval has not been taken from the correct authority, then your proceeding may be questioned in that scenario. As I mentioned earlier, that in some of the circumstances, notice under 148 can be issued directly without following the procedure under 148A. So if we understand this scenario under current law and prior law, so in simple language, and as I explained yesterday also the current law, if there is any information as per scheme notified under 135A, then directly notice can be issued of 148. But there are four scenarios in prior law which need to be considered whether notice can be issued under section 148 directly or not. So for that reference, I'm again going back to Bayer Act. So this is the language of law under 148A itself, provided that the provisions of this section shall not apply in case where, and there are four conditions in which assessing officer need not to follow the procedure under 148A. He can issue notice under 148 directly. So first is, if search is initiated under section 132 for books of account or other documents or any asset or equivalent under section 132A in case of assessee on or after 1st April 2021. If this is the scenario, then he can issue notice under 148 directly. Second is the assessing officer is satisfied, but with the prior approval of principal commissioner or commissioner, that such type of information, money, bullion, jewelry, in such proceeding, in the case of any other person, belongs to assessee, because this is third party search, but information pertains to assessee in which proceeding need to be initiated. So if this is the scenario and prior approval has been taken from principal commissioner or commissioner, then in that scenario, directly notice under 148 can be issued. Clause C, the language is same, but mentioned that if these information and with the prior approval of principal commissioner or commissioner relates to assessee. So if this belongs to assessee and it relates to assessee, in that scenario, if prior approval has been taken by assessing officer, he can issue notice under 148 directly. Fourth is again same, which is in current law also. If assessing officer has received any information under the scheme notified under section 135A, which says that in a faceless manner, assessing officer has taken certain information, then in that scenario also, he can issue notice under 148 directly. So, considering that, we need to keep in mind that whether 148A procedure has been followed correctly or not, approval from specified authority has been taken or not, if there is any gap, if there is any procedural lapse which has been done by assessing officer while conducting proceeding under 148A, then definitely we may take these grounds before appellate authorities. And when we are talking about the notices which have been issued under 148 or 148A from 1st April 21 to 30 August 2024, so except the notices which have been issued under 148 in April 24 to 30 August 24. Apart from that, all notices are concluded, and somewhere if there is any adverse inference taken by assessing officer in that scenario, then these matter has been raised before appellate authority also. So this is an importance of understanding today's webinar, that some of the proceedings are already reached before appellate authority, some of the proceedings are still before the assessing officer at assessment stage. So we need to be mindful while handling these proceedings and need to take note and note down these points while handling these proceedings. So this is in relation to 148A procedure. The charging section 147 is same as I explained in yesterday webinar, and definitely we can understand that if there is any another issue also, then officer may extend to that note that issue also, though that has not been covered while issuing the notice under 148A or 148. But yes, during the course of any assessment proceeding, if assessing officer at subsequent stage identify another issue, then definitely he may make addition at that point also. Now this is section 148, which we should understand from the Bayer Act itself. Section 148 says that before making the assessment, reassessment, or recomputation under section 147, and subject to provision of section 148A. So now you may understand the phraseology which has been mentioned in 148 itself, that this is subject to provision of section 148A. This is the reason I have given emphasis that whether 148A procedure has been followed properly or not, which we need to understand in a proper manner, because 148 section is subject to provision under 148A. Next point is the assessing officer shall serve on the assessee a notice. Till now, in assessment proceeding, if we talk about 20-25 years back, every time it has been mentioned that in the notice under 148 section, every time officer should ensure that that notice has been served to assessee. If that has not been served, or that has been served after limitation period, so definitely we could take a ground that since the notice under 148 has not been served, so accordingly proceeding need to be invalidated. But as I explained yesterday also, this word has been changed from serve to issue, and I have explained the implications and constitutional validity of this word in yesterday webinar. So now this, in the prior law, the notice under 148 need to be served along with a copy of order passed if required under section 148 AD. Why it is mentioned as if required? Because जहाँ पे वो प्रोसीजर फॉलो होना है वहाँ पे तो मैंडेटरी असेसिंग ऑफिसर को उसको एनक्लोज करना ही करना है, बट वेयर the cases under which 148 AD procedure need not to be followed. This is the reason it has been mentioned if required. तो उस सिनेरियो में अगर डायरेक्टली 148 का नोटिस इशू हो रहा है, then definitely and obviously this order under 148A need not to be attached. So what it says, notice under 148 need to be served requiring the assessee to furnish return of income within a period of 3 months from end of the month in which such notice is issued. So this is the maximum time period which can be given by assessing officer to assessee, because the word is within such time period. So we have seen also that in some of the cases, assessing officer gives 30 days time. In some of the cases, they give very odd time, 78 days they give to respond, 66 days they give to respond. But whatever time limit which is given by assessing officer to furnish return of income by assessee should furnish the return of income within that time limit also. I'll tell you the benefit to furnish return of income within that time period in the subsequent slide. A return of income or the income of any other person in respect of which he is assessable under this act during the previous year corresponding to the relevant assessment year in the prescribed form and verified in the prescribed manner, and setting forth such other particulars as may be prescribed, and the provision of this act shall so far as be apply accordingly as if such written were required to be punished under 139. One more point which I just want to highlight here, in reassessment proceeding, if we see section 147 and later section also till 152, the word has been mentioned as relevant assessment here. And in some of the proceeding, what I have noticed, let's suppose assessing officer is having certain investigation report, and year one, the sale of assessee is, let's suppose, is 20 crore rupee, and in year two, the sale is, let's suppose, 15 crore rupee. So by issuing single 148 notice, officer has alleged that you have escaped assessment of 35 crores rupees. So that is totally incorrect as per the law, because officer need to pick information for that particular assessment year for which 148 notice is to be issued by assessing officer. So if there are two separate year for which assessing officer is having information that assessee is having income escapement, then he has to issue separate notice for those separate assessment years. Now, first proviso to 148 says, provided that no notice under this section shall be issued unless there is information with the assessing officer which suggests, as I mentioned earlier, that the information in a suggestive manner. So scope is narrower than the scope which has been in the prior law, because prior law says that if assessing officer is having reason to believe. So now current law is having very narrower scope. So if assessing officer is having the information, then in that scenario, uh, the assessing officer need to take prior approval from the specified authority that we have understood from 148A proceeding also. Provided further that no such approval shall be required where assessing officer with the prior approval of specified authority has passed an order under 148 AD. Now this is also again an important point to understand here, and we may observe also that if assessing officer is issuing 148 notice directly, then in that scenario, the approval taken from specified authority is mentioned. But if this is the case, that assessing officer is issuing the notice under 148 by following the procedure under 148 AD, then there is no mention in the notice under 148 that from which authority that approval has been taken. So this is the logic of that mentioning of approval under 148 notice, because since at the time of passing order under 148 AD, officer has already taken approval from specified authority, then it is not required to take further approval at the time of issuance of 148 notice. But if this is the scenario that assessing officer is directly issuing the notice under 148 without following the procedure under 148A, then that approval need to be taken before issuance of notice under 148, and that need to be mentioned over the notice also. 148 provision further specifies that what type of information which suggests that assessing officer should be having to issue notice under 148A, that has been mentioned in explanation 1. I mentioned earlier that the return of income need to be furnished within the time period which has been specified in the notice itself. So this is the reason I mentioned this, because one of the proviso to section 148 says, provided also that any return of income required to be furnished by an assessee under the section and furnished beyond the time allowed shall not be deemed to be a return of income under 139. So if you are filing that return of income after the time given by the assessing officer, then in that scenario, that return will not be considered as 139. So somewhere, if that return will not be considered as 139 return, And let's suppose that during the course of proceeding, 143(2) notice, which is a statutory notice, has not been issued by assessing officer within the time period, then somewhere this ground cannot be taken before the appellate authority that 143 notice need to be issued within the time period, but that has not been issued, so this invalidate my proceeding. So if you are filing the return of income within the time period and notice has not been issued within the time limit under 143(2), then this may be another ground to invalidate my proceeding. So this is the reason we should always be careful and file our return of income within the time period which has been given under 148 notice. So somewhere we have understood the landmark judgment in the case of Ashish Agrawal. In case of Rajiv Bansal, we have also understood assessment year wise that what can be the implications where the notices have been issued in those 3 months from 1st April 21 to 30 June 21. We have also understood the procedure under 148A. We have also understood the law which is under section 148. And now I just want to touch one more point here, and then I can conclude here and can take up the queries from the participants. As I mentioned that various notices have been issued on 30 August 2024. Since the law is being amended, White Finance Act 2024, with effect from 1st September 2024. So whatever is the pending notices for the assessment year for which assessing officer could issue the notice, in haste, assessing officer has issued notice under 148 in the end of 30 August 2024. So let's suppose that if there is any proceeding in relation to an assessment year is already pending before the assessing officer, and in his the assessing officer issued the notice in relation to that particular assessment year again. So since your assessment proceeding is already pending for that assessment year, so again the officer cannot issue the notice for that pending assessment year. So in that case, this can be the case of writ petition, that since my assessment proceeding for that particular assessment year is already pending, then the notice for that particular assessment year cannot be issued again. So this need to be keep in mind while checking the notices issued on 30 August 2024 by the assessing officer. Now we need to understand the limitation period to issue order under 147, because as I mentioned earlier that the notices which have been issued from 1st April 2021, these proceedings have reached to appellate authority also. So if this is the case, I am reading the serial number second, where the notice under 148 is served on or after 1st April 2019. In that scenario, the limitation period is the 12 months from end of the financial year in which notice under 148 is served. So if in that scenario you identify that the order has been passed after limitation period, then this may invalidate my proceeding. I just share one instance here that although on a apparent reading, we see that 12 months need to be counted from end of the financial year in which notice under 148 is served, but some of the writ petitions which are pending before High Court and that need to be adjudicated right now. In those writ petitions, a plea has been taken from assessee side, petitioner side, that this 12 months period need to be counted from issuance of 148A notice, not from issuance of notice under 148, because somewhere by applying the constitutional validity, let's suppose my uh, notice under 148A has been issued in March, and now by following that procedure, notice under 148 is issued in April. So somewhere we need to count the limitation period from end of March of that year in which 148 is issued, and another 12 months need to be added while concluding the limitation period. So this help the assessing officer unnecessarily take additional 11 months time to conclude the proceeding. So accordingly, we need to consider and we need to recount the limitation period from end of the financial year in which 148A notice has been issued. Last point which I just want to touch here, and thereafter we may take queries of participants. Limitation period to issue notice under 148 is to be counted in view of fifth and sixth proviso to section 149, which says that, as I mentioned earlier also and explained also, that whatever is the time limit given by the assessing officer to respond to notice, or any time which has been borrowed by assessee to respond notice under 148A, that need to be added while calculating the limitation period to issue 148 notice. And sixth proviso says that if there is less than 7 days time with the assessing officer to pass or to issue 148 notice, then 7 days time need to be given additional time to assessing officer to issue 148 notice. So to explain fifth and sixth proviso in an illustration manner, I just present here an example here that let's suppose the case is of assessment year 1920. The income alleged as income statement is 49 lakh, less than 50 lakh rupee. And this is the case of 1920. So since this is the case of less than 50 lakh rupee, so notice under 148 as per section 149 need to be issued within 3 years from end of the relevant assessment year. So since in my case, the assessment year is 2019-20, and from that end of assessment year, 3 years lapse on 31st March 2023. So ideally, we may see that notice under 148 need to be issued by 31st March 2023. But as per fifth proviso to 149, whatever time limit has been given by assessing officer to assessee to respond, and time limit which has been taken by assessee to respond, that also, that need to be added further. So let's suppose in my case, notice has been issued on 20 March. Assessing officer asked the assessee to respond on 20 March, and assessee has responded as a full response on 31st March. So now from 21st March to 31st March, this is 11 days time that need to be added while calculating the limitation period to issue under notice under 148. So that becomes 11 April. Now 7 days time need to be added as per the sixth proviso to 149. So that becomes 18 April. So this is the limitation period by which the assessing officer had to issue notice under 148. If this is the scenario that officer has issued notice on 19 April or any date after 18 April, then in that scenario, we may see that notice under 148 has been issued after limitation period. So that may lead to invalidate my proceeding. So I conclude myself here by saying that before handling any proceeding under 147, reassessment proceeding especially, we need to understand the law. That what is the law, how it is designed, what is the procedure, what type of approval need to be taken by assessing officer, and whether everything which is done during the course of proceeding in relation to limitation period also is as per law or not. If there is gap which you identify, there is any procedure which has not been followed, which is given in the law, then definitely this become a case of technical ground, and that can be taken before the appellate authority while filing appeals or writ petitions. So I conclude myself here, and now we can take queries from participants.
Yes, I would request the participants to write their queries in the Q&A box. In the meanwhile, I would like to introduce our partners from OneNDF. OneNDF is an online loan aggregation platform making life easier for chartered accountants while helping their clients in loan procurement. Today we have their entire team, founder OneNDF, Mr. Nitin Khandelwal, COO OneNDF, Ms. Shipra Kochar, and Head Partnerships OneNDF, Ms. Janvi Kalra. We welcome you all today to the webinar. Nitinji, over to you.
Thank you so very much, ma'am, for having us here and giving us opportunity. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. This is Nitin Khandelwal, founder of OneNDF. We have built a platform especially designed for chartered accountant. It's a loan marketplace. It's a secure loan marketplace where we have integrated our platform with credit bureau, income tax portal, GSTIN portal, and MCA portal, and we do complete due diligence within couple of minutes. You just need to enter your client. Anybody who is looking for a loan, you can onboard on our platform, and within couple of minutes you can find out that this customer is eligible from this bank and for this much of amount. And directly from our portal, you can log in the application directly to that respective bank, and you can track all your login, sanction, disbursements from the platform. And we do not charge anything from the customer. And when we receive you can also do the due diligence on our platform. We generate comprehensive due diligence reports. So for vendor due diligence or for client due diligence, you can download the comprehensive reports from our platform. And once the disbursement is done, we get the revenue, and we share revenue with our professional partners. So this is the platform, and we will just walk you through the platform. It will take only 2 minutes. And Janvi, please, could you please share your screen and walk us through the platform?
Neha ma'am, can you give me the sharing rights if possible?
Just 1 second. I was just checking that only.
Yeah.
I think I've given it to Shipra ma'am. I'll just transfer it to you. Hold on, huh?
Yeah, yes, please.
I cannot do it.
I've
Head
given
office,
the
you will.
No,
Yeah,
done
I've
it. It
given
is
the
done.
rights.
It is done. It is done.
I've given the rights.
Yes, yes. Please, Janvi.
Yes, please. 1 second. All right. Is my screen visible, ma'am? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Please go ahead, Nitin sir.
So this is the CA portal. You just need to come on the website onendf.com, and then there is a CA partner portal, and you just need to sign up with your mobile number and OTP, and you will ended up on this platform where CA dashboard. You can check everything from here. You can add a new client here. Anybody who is you can share this link with your customer as well. They can upload all the documents. They can complete the journey from your link, and application will be logged in on your code. And then when you add a new client, it will ask only for PAN number and email ID of the client, and you will see all your clients list here. And this will look like this journey will look like this when you click on this. So it is the borrower portal where we can complete the credit profile of the customer. So credit profiling comprises of 6 steps. First step is credit bureau. Credit bureau is a soft pull. Soft pull means that it won't impact your credit score. You can pull it n number of times. It will have all the comprehensive loan data. Your current credit card, your all loans will reflect in this report. It's just a similar to CIBIL report. Next is we have integration with MCA, and there is no OTP requirement in case of private limited company. And we will fetch this data from ROC, and will process this information, and you can download this as a report, PDF report. And in case of income proprietor and partners and directors, you just need to authenticate income tax credentials, and we will pull income tax data directly from income tax portal, and you can download this data as well. Next is our GSTN integration, where it will have, you need to authenticate your GSTN credentials, and it will have all the data like purchase, like total purchase, total sale, import bills, export bills, B2B sales, and it will also have number of invoices, total taxable amount, and recurring nature of invoices, and you can download complete GST and IN data from here. And next is banking analysis, where you just need to upload a PDF soft copy of the bank statement, and we will do the complete analysis. Complete analysis is available, and we will do the complete grouping of the banking transactions. So suppose cash flow coming from finance activities, cash flow coming from operational activities, cash flows coming from investing activities, and everything will be grouped in this bank statement. And then this is all part of credit profile. Next we have loan query. So now you need to initiate a loan query to know the eligibility of the client, and just it will ask for the few information, and then we will show you the matches that this customer is eligible from this bank and for this much of amount, and you can directly log in your application from our portal, and you can track. So now this customer is eligible from these banks, and you can click on any of the bank and submit your application right from the platform. And then one relationship manager will be assigned to you, and one relationship manager will do the complete handholding, and he will do the complete coordination with the customer. And you just need to refer a client, and we will share once the disbursement is done, we will share the revenue with you. And a report will look like, Janvi, could you please share the report?
Yes. Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah. Report
Yes.
is not visible.
1 second.
Sir, what I like about the portal is कि एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म जहां में मुझे सभी बैंक्स और एनबीएफसीज का ये दिख जाता है कि मेरे क्लाइंट के लिए सबसे बढ़िया रेट कौन दे रहा है, सबसे अच्छे बेनिफिट्स कौन दे रहा है.
Yeah, ma'am, and we have, ma'am, 120 plus lenders. We have 120, almost all the private banks and all the NBFCs in tier 2 town, tier 3, Chandigarh, Punjab, Ludhiana, Ambala, and including regional NBFCs also.
Very nice.
And
Very
it
nice.
is, think of us, ma'am, like a make my trip of loans. Like you can compare, like, and when we go to Air India, we do not know whether 9:30 flight Mumbai to Delhi will work for us or not. But at Make My Trip, you get all the options. You get 10 p.m. options also. You get 11 p.m. option also. You get 12 a.m. option also. So think of us like make my trip of loans. तो मतलब हमारे पास सारे ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल हैं. आपको कौन सा सूट करता है, हो सकता है आपको जो लेंडर सूट करता है वो ऐसा हो कि 20 साल का टेन्योर आपको चाहिए लोन अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी में. जनरली लोन अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी में 20 साल का टेन्योर बहुत सारे बैंक्स नहीं देते हैं, या जिनका क्रेडिट स्कोर अच्छा नहीं है, या जिनकी बैलेंस शीट्स में वाइट की इनकम बहुत कम है लेकिन कैश इनकम, लिक्विड इनकम, असेस इनकम उनकी बहुत ज्यादा है, तो उनकी एलिजिबिलिटी बैंक से ज्यादा नहीं बनती है लेकिन एनबीएफसी से अच्छी बन जाती है. तो आपको 5 से 10 मिनट में ये आइडिया चल जाता है कि हमें टाटा को रीच आउट करना है, या आदित्य बिरला को रीच आउट करना है, या कोटक को रीच आउट करना है.
राइट. जानवी मैम, एक बार फिर से ट्राई करो ना प्लीज. आई स्टिल कांट सी द रिपोर्ट.
Is it now? 1 second.
No.
Just give me 1 second. Screen is not visible.
No, screen is not visible.
मैम कुछ नेटवर्क इशू चल रहा है आपके यहाँ शायद.
Yeah. I think अब मैं करूंगा तो मेरे को फिर राइट्स मांगने पड़ेंगे.
दो ना, राइट देते हैं आपको.
अच्छा, ओके, एक सेकंड.
हेड ऑफिस राइट दो नितिन सर को. It will take just 1 more minute, and then we'll continue with the Q&A.
Given the rights.
Yes.
सचिन जी, yes, recording is available. अंकित सर, आपका क्वेश्चन जस्ट ले रहे हैं हम. right after this. Amit ji, आपका question भी will take up right after this. Give us another minute. Bimanshu sir, आप available हो ना Q&A के लिए? There are 3-4 questions.
Yeah, sure.
बिमांशु सर, आवाज नहीं आ रही है आपकी.
Yes, yes, I am available.
ओके बिमांशु सर, आपकी पीपीटी की बड़ी डिमांड है. कल की पीपीटी के लिए भी मेरे पास बहुत मैसेजेस आए थे और अभी भी चैट ग्रुप में अभी सभी मेंबर्स पूछ रहे हैं. इफ यू वुड बी काइंड इनफ टू शेयर योर पीपीटी तो हम मेंबर्स के साथ नेक्स्ट सेशन में शेयर कर देंगे, नेक्स्ट ईमेल में.
Yes, sure. I'll
थैंक
share
यू.
the link and then
थैंक यू बिमांशु, थैंक यू.
it can be
हाँ नितिन सर.
shared with the participants.
अभी report up. Yes, this is the report. So it has complete data about the company, directors shareholding, current directors data, active GSTIN, inactive GSTIN data, legal cases running against the directors. So this report is very useful for all the members. You can download this report for any private limited company from our portal, and we are giving 10 reports free for each members, and you can share it with your client. This is just a basic hygiene check for your client. You can do complete analysis about their financials, last 3 year financial data, and is there any compliance related issues, or so you can track everything from this report.
Absolutely.
Mid-size CA firms are using this data. It has all the auditors details, when auditors got changed in the last 5 years, who all are the auditors. So it has everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir,
Thank you
conclude
very
करें.
much for this. Yes,
हाँ.
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, giving us this opportunity, and thank you all members. Thank you very much for your time. We are available, and email ID is just in the chat box. And if anybody is interested for a demo, you can reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Always.
Thank
शिप्रा
you.
मैम प्लीज डाल देना आप ईमेल आईडी चैट बॉक्स में. हाय ऋषभ. विमांशु जी, हम फटाफट से आपके क्वेश्चंस ले लेते हैं.
Yes, so we can
अंकित
take
जी.
first question from Q&A box, which is from Amit ji, right?
हाँ, श्योर
And,
श्योर.
meanwhile, I have read his query, जो facts उन्होंने दिया है and what he is trying to say. So
यस.
this is good to see that you have responded to notice under 148 here, because I was emphasizing that yes, notice when the notice under 148A has been issued, then somewhere you need to punish your facts before assessing officer, because basis that officer in a better position to analyze whether this is a fit case to issue 148 notice or not. So as you mentioned that income was below basic exemption limit, but yes, the assessee has made certain investments, and maybe that to be in a very honest manner, he has made certain investment. Now your query is that you have responded to that notice within the time period, and there is no further communication before from the assessing officer. So the limitation period to conclude the proceeding under 148A become 30 June 2025 by default, because the limitation period to issue notice under 148 is June 25. So this is the reason as of now your proceeding is not concluded in your case. You may wait till 30 June 2025. Now there can be 3 scenarios in this case. One is he issue notice saying that still I think that this is a fit case to issue notice 148, then you need to handle proceeding. It may be a scenario that basis your response, officer thinks that this is not the fit case because you do have income below exemption limit. So this is not a fit case to issue notice, then your proceeding will be concluded at that stage as well. Third scenario, although that will not be happened, but yes, I am telling you, officer does not issue 148A3 order by June 2025, then in that scenario, the proceeding will be time barred, and then you will be having a ground that this is time barred, so entire proceeding will be questioned. Hope this answered. Now, coming back to query from Ankit ji. So I
Yes.
would request Neha ji to unmute Ankit ji, because उनको कुछ confusion भी है कल की webinar से भी, और इनका जो क्वेश्चन है वो भी थोड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग लग रहा है, तो आई जस्ट वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम हिम कि क्या उनका क्वेरी है।
ठीक है अंकित जी, अगर आप हैं ऑनलाइन, अभी भी अगर आप ऑनलाइन हैं तो प्लीज आप हैंड रेज कीजिए सो दैट हम आपको अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं। अंकित जी काइंडली अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ।
कल भी आई थिंक से उनको कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ रहा था, because I just want to understand from him that notice under 148 has been issued for 23-24. Uh, I have not seen that that notice for assessment year 23-24 has been issued till now from assessing officer side. So this is a very confusing point from his side. So what he can do if he is not online and he cannot raise the hand, then what I do that I can share my screen and he can call me and then I can answer him in a better manner.
Yes, yes, he's just messaged us that he'll take another minute if he's able to unmute himself.
Yeah, sure.
हाँ, तब तक आप अपनी डिटेल्स दे ही दीजिए हमारे।
Otherwise, he can reach out me at this email ID and I'll connect with him or I can answer this query. So I think he will be noting down my contact details and he can write me an email on this email ID.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ankit, are you able to unmute yourself? If not, then we shall move towards the conclusion of the session. We shall move towards the conclusion. Ankit ji, request you to kindly go through the contact details of Himanshu ji and get in touch with him. I would now request Rishabh, my brother, to thank Himanshu ji and all the participants today.
Perfect. Yeah, after a very long time, actually, I have been able to attend our own session as well. So it was a lovely treat hearing you, Vimanshu. And this was a coincidence that we've met through certain other means, other channels, and this is how I always say that the power of networking, that you develop a relationship for something else, but at the end of the day, we found a diamond who could actually come here, support our members and our viewers on such a complicated topic of assessments and reassessment. Uh, it is why I say complicated, because once I started to study it in CA final, and later on during my articleship as well, only I used to always feel that I should quit this whenever I used to hear about assessments or litigation. So that's why I give you a very big applause, Manchu, on taking this subject, being very thorough with this 2 days. You've been with us and our viewers. So I really thank you for giving us your time and sharing your knowledge and disseminating the best of what you have with our viewers and of course us. So keep this relationship with us, and I know Neha will do the rest efforts to keep you busy with us with Voice of CA. So, and I thank you, the participants, and of course the OneNDF team here, who have been our long-term partners since the last 1.5 years. So, thank you all, thank you participants for joining in, and I think we'll see you all in the next events.
Thank you, Rishabh, for
Thank you so
inviting us.
much, sir.
Definitely,
Thank you very
we
much.
will be in touch and we will do more webinars and we will be having more meetings.
Perfect. Right.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Rishabh. Thank
For
you.
patience hearing. Thank
Head
you.
office, we can close the session now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just a minute.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.